Compared to the drum machine euphoria of dance music in 1989, Soul II Soul stood apart. Britain was getting sweaty in impromptu raves, with Euro producers snagging disco samples to voice their 4 to the floor, 120 BPM party starters. Meanwhile, a loose collective of London-based DJs, dancers, singers, and the occasional musician slowed it down, added doses of soulful groove and positive thinking, and changed the face of British music. The arrogance at the time of calling their debut Club Classics Volume 1 has dimmed in the face of what we know now, its seismic cultural impact with songs that still ignite dance floors today. This is New British Canon, and this is the story of Back to Life, However Do You Want Me. The Soul II Soul story starts in 1977. Trevor Beresford Romeo got his first experience as a DJ at the age of 14, providing tunes for a street party for the Queen's Silver Jubilee. As the Sex Pistols were sailing down the Thames in opposition of Elizabeth II's 25 years on the throne, Romeo started his own revolution. It was just outside my door. It was a massive street party, and I got paid for it as well. I told everybody I got paid £6, but actually got £12. That's where the vision began. The youngest boy out of 10 siblings, all his older brothers had been in sound system crews. An aspect of the Jamaican music scene, sound systems consisted of a microphone, a pair of decks, and a massive stack of self-made speakers, designed to be extra loud and soul-cleansingly bassy. These mobile discotheques were hired out for parties and events, and usually played dub and reggae, music mostly ignored by the BBC.
Man, if you ride like the real crash like thunder. I'm gonna send him to outer space to find another race. Hear what I say.
By the late 70s, they were a vital part of black British culture. As a kid, Romeo was in charge of the valves, and on occasion was allowed to queue up tracks on the decks. However, after his first payday, he joined forces with school friend Dade Harvey, and assembled his own sound system, dubbed Jarico. As they'd spent all the money they had on equipment and records, transporting their kits to early gigs required canny utilization of supermarket trolleys and the number 14 bus. By the age of 18, Romeo was augmenting his sound system capital by engineering at Nova Sound Studios, owned by former skiffle heartthrob Tommy Steele. Amongst making cups of tea, he absorbed all he could about the production process, and applied it to his entrepreneurial pursuits. What differentiated them from many London sound systems was they stopped playing just reggae. Romeo started slipping in surprises, like the occasional Alphonse Mouzon cut, that reflected the wide-ranging musical taste that had earned him the forever aka Jazzy B. In 1982, Jarico was renamed Soul II Soul, as they had moved from playing reggae to soul, in particular obscure 70s tracks known as Rare Groove. We had technically started out as a reggae sound system, but we made the choice to make it about the dancers. What we represented was a sound system that was inclusive, rather than exclusive. Facing our audience really changed everything, and we're into electro and hip-hop, alongside all the other great music that was coming out of the 70s. Setting up in derelict warehouses, they put on proto-raves. Unlicensed and highly illegal, these nightly parties not only earned them bin bags full of cash, but by organising in tandem with Judge Jules' family function, they were bringing the young people of London together. We were the first to play the white warehouse scene and draw our own people. We teamed up with Family Function, and that set the trend. Working class black kids and middle class white kids working together. If the coppers came to the door, they'd handle it. If a posse gathered outside, we'd handle it. Safe. It was a big turning point for me. And when the DJs of Soul II Soul, Jazzy B, Harvey, HB and Jazzy Q weren't holding court at various warehouses across London, they and their acolytes were spreading the gospel on the city's burgeoning network of pirate radio stations, like Kiss FM. However, by 1986, Acid House was on the horizon, the rave boom within earshot, and Soul II Soul's warehouse parties were getting increasingly druggy and violent. So to separate themselves from that, they went legit, and secured a Sunday residency at the Africa Centre in Covent Garden. It wasn't so much a club, but a church-supported cultural centre for refugees that the Soul II Soul guys rented, bringing their sound system and a bar with them. Sunday was chosen strategically, as the problem members of the crowd had already partied themselves out on Friday and Saturday. It left only the true believers, and every Sunday they packed it out. We'd have queues starting at 7, 8 o'clock. Didn't open the doors until 10. It was mad. Everyone was waiting for me to pull up. Turn the heating up, leave it on for an hour, close the windows, put the fucking drapes up. No, leave it like that. 400 people out there yet? Wait for the other 3. We used to keep it empty, just play the sound, just ourselves, just tuning the sound, for hours, empty, bouncers going mad. And I wouldn't open the door. And when you finally opened the door, people were so hungry to get in.
Come on, I got to have it. Just kiss my baby. Just kiss my baby. Tell me what to do. Pump up the volume, dance with the speaker till you hear it blow. Then plug in a headphone, cause here it goes.
So successful were they that Soul II Soul started selling their own merch at a stall in Camden. T-shirts with a cartoon approximation of Jazzy B with his funky dread hairstyle, emblazoned on the front. Even if you were too young to make it to the club, you could still buy a shirt and be involved. With an unerring finger on the pulse of what's hot in music, the next step to get the Soul II Soul name known was obvious.
Wouldn't that be fair?
Back in Jamaica, to give sound systems a competitive edge, they often made their own exclusive remixes. Normally these were pressed onto a one-off 10-inch vinyl acetate, known as a dubplate special. In their original context, they were used to win sound clashes, proto-rap battles, but with tunes as opposed to lyrical dexterity. With these specials taking a proven party starter and augmenting it with a new bass line or vocal, the latter ideally informing dancers of their sound system's superior nature. Soul II Soul went beyond simply remixing a proven club hit, and started making their own music. The DJ is as important as the vinyl. The DJ is the important link. He's the one who's giving the public the music. Every time I make a demo, I make an acetate, and that way, when I play it in a club, I can get a dance floor reaction immediately. A lot of people on this particular scene understand that entirely. You go to the clubs, you rave, you hear the new music, see the new dances, see the fashions. You can meet, socialize, and most important of all, you can express yourself. Musically, Jazzy B wasn't especially competent. Though his parents had given him piano lessons as a kid, not much stuck. His real power was communicating his ideas to others. And thankfully, due to the community that had been forged through the Africa Centre, he had attracted a wellspring of talent. A collective feeding off each other's energy. Producer Nelly Hooper had originally been part of a rival Bristol-based sound system before being snatched up for Soul II Soul. I was playing out with the Wild Bunch, and we'd hired Soul II Soul's system, but the whole posse turned up too, thinking they were doing the sounds. Me and Jazzy had a huge row. I bumped into him a few months later. We had a laugh about it and patched things up. He was well into the Wild Bunch's The Look of Love. Used to play that a lot. The soul vocal and hip-hop beat on the Wild Bunch's version of the Burt Bacharach tune was formative to where B wanted to take Soul II Soul, as was shown in their first dubplate, Fair Play, in 1987. The beat's original robotic Roland 808 framework was given more groove, more soul, by intersplicing a human drum sample, giving the track its distinctive shuffle. Said programmer Gota Yashiki, Acid House was going on and everything was fall to the floor, and we got bored of it. We loved the more hip-hop-like groove presented in the most soulful way. Sonically, something like an 808 has a massive bass, and breakbeats or even live drumming doesn't have that sound that only a machine can make. Mixed together, it made the strongest grooves that you've ever heard before. Beyond Hooper, the track assembled further talent from the London sound system scene. The song's playful bassline, as well as the occasional keyboard flourish, was supplied by Andrew Levy of the Brand New Heavies. But it was the vocals of club regular Rose Windross that made Fair Play the anthem for Soul II Soul's time at the Africa Club.
Soul II Soul is the place where you should be.
Every sound system is like a stage show, so Rose, who was one of the dancers and followers at the time, she also sung.
On Sunday nights with HHU and Cassie B.
The significance of Fair Play in that surrounding was that the beat and the groove was used as the bass. We used to play Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech over that. Rose would often take the mic and there'd be a section, maybe a 10-minute bit, where she would just voice, as it were, express herself. Then one evening I took her into the studio and we recorded it.
You should come down and try to express yourself.
But Jazzy B wasn't satisfied with just the faithful Africa Center 700. He wanted Soul II Soul to be the biggest sound system in the world. Knowing how great Fair Play was as a club track, he shared it about. Whereas dub plates were usually exclusive and available to hear only at their parent sound system, B yet again made it inclusive. He sent it out to the pirates, to the other clubs, and released it into the wild. Like the t-shirts before, even if you weren't at their club, you could experience Soul II Soul. By this point, labels were sniffing about. Soul II Soul was a movement with its own fashion, sound and community, with this attention earning Jazzy B DJ sets well beyond London. All of this they had built themselves, without any funding or major label cash. So it was only a matter of time that a label saw this, and took the band to the next level. Whereas guitar bands were cutting demos and waiting for record companies, we were making the music and playing it to a ready-made audience. So we were doing pretty good on our own circuit, and picking up traction on the underground across the world. I'd got a residency in New York, and was playing across most of Europe. That's how the whole thing developed. We had our audience to dictate where our sound was going, and where we formed our ideas. Outside of that, the public got involved once we signed a deal with 10 Records. An offshoot of Virgin, 10 released Fair Play commercially in May 1988. Not really a hit, it climbed to number 63 on the UK singles chart, while its follow-up a couple months later, the Doreen Waddell featuring Feel Free, did one worse at number 64. What Soul II Soul needed was a track that transcended the dance floor. By the start of 1989, Soul II Soul's time at the Africa Center was winding down. A nasty infestation of cops was making things less sociable, so they had to move on. Jazzy B has said that the nights at the Africa Center had been the center of his world, and those that were there speak of their experiences in hushed tones, like a wondrous myth, a CBGB's for multicultural 80s London. They would move their weekly club night to the Fridge, a significantly larger venue in South London. Still, it was an emotional farewell. As the sun rose as they drove home after their last show, the light hit the windshield and impelled Jazzy to write a lyric about this big life change. It was a nostalgic feeling, sad that it's over, but so happy that it happened, with a strong sense of hope for the future. Keep on Moving symbolizes the whole way that I feel about things. That was the reason behind writing it. The fact that we're always going to have depressing moments, and the fact that we have to break down doors as opposed to waiting for them to rust and mold away, means that we've got to keep on moving and show everyone else what can be done. There's absolutely no end to one's imagination if time prevails. What's interesting is that the featured vocalist on the track never actually attended their Sunday nights at the Africa Centre. Karen Wheeler had been making music since the late 70s, originally as a teenager with the lovers rock trio, Brown Sugar. Her real love though was soul and gospel music, and with vocal group Aphrodisiac had been quite prolific, brought in to arrange vocals and sing backup for when British pop groups needed a touch of soul. But at 25, she tired of not being recognised for her talent, and was now working as a librarian. Soul II Soul gave her a shot at infamy. Upon hearing her sing, B felt he'd found his Anita Baker, though she'd previously supplied backing vocals on Feel Free. Keep On Moving was Wheeler's first lead feature for Soul II Soul, and it was her years of experience with vocal arrangement that truly made Keep On Moving sing. When Jazzy brought me Keep On Moving, some of the words were there, but none of the vocals were, and the sound seemed like it was flying past you. I told them that the music needed to slow down. I told Jazzy, what you're saying in the song is good, but the way you're saying it isn't. To me, it was moving so quickly that you couldn't really hear what the message was. This is the reason why we made the chords mellow, and got the beat in there to give it something to anchor it with. Keep On Moving is built on the same techniques as their dubplate specials. The shuffling hip-hop beat, the deep James Brown bass line, the soul-imbued vocal, just now with a radio-ready sheen. One welcome addition was the introduction of the Reggae Philharmonic Orchestra. Since his days setting up sessions at Nova Sound Studios, Jazzy B had grown to despise guitars, but had a huge affection for strings, feeling they gave a sophistication to his street music, as well as a warmth and humanity that complemented Wheeler's honeyed vocals. By this point, Soul II Soul had enough material for an album, so went about recording it for release at Pink Floyd's Britannia Rose Studios. Well, because we made so many dubplates for the sound system, all the ideas were already kinda there. I keep using the words kind of because we refined it as we released it, as it were. So a lot of the ideas would have been in a rawer form with the sound system, and stuff like that. And then releasing them, obviously we were on that much of a high where we called it Club Classics, you know? Club Classics Volume 1 was structured like a DJ set. The big soul-led tunes are separated by a cappella interludes and jazz flute instrumentals. Like on African Dance, often the collective grooved on an idea for 6 minutes, letting the beat and bass line play out for as long as it needed to. They were building a narrative, and beyond sampling in 808 formed beats, Soul II Soul were taking ideas from US hip-hop. Their whole message of unity and Afrocentricity that was happening in New York hip-hop at the time. There was an inseparable link to what we were dealing with in London, which if you take a snapshot of the entire United Kingdom, is really not a good representation of Great Britain. With London being so innovative and creative, the energy and the vibe I would hear from KRS-One and Rakim would erupt over when I was creating something like Jazzy's Groove. With its blaring Gary Bird sample, Jazzy's Groove acted as a Soul II Soul story so far, B in interview mode trying to get across to listeners what the collective were about.
Well, we're a sound system, an amalgamation of good dance music.
He's compared his spoken word style to Isaac Hayes and Barry White.
You see, love, I can't sleep
Too much of anything is not good for you, baby.
And so in an attempt to get his voice as deep as possible, varyingly sipped bourbon and recorded takes laying down under a piano.
Make our own music, creating our own styles here in London.
The main difference from those soul greats, aside from Jazzy's obvious lack of range, was his London accent. And while Britain had dabbled in rap, with artists like Smiley Culture and Derek B, being comfortable in one's own national voice was still an innovation.
The future for soul to soul, a happy face, a thumping bass for a loving race.
Yet it was the vocal interlude leading into Jazzy's groove that ended up transforming into Soul II Soul's most enduring song. Keep On Moving was released as a single in March 1989 and reached number 5 in the UK charts. It also made inroads in the US, initially confusing programmers as to where to play it, before becoming a drive time staple in New York and dominating multiple radio formats, eventually hitting number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100 in September. Club Classics Volume 1 was released a month after Keep On Moving and entered the UK album chart at number 5. It was selling well, but it needed another single to really consolidate their biggest sound system in the world ambitions. Problem was that Club Classics Volume 1 didn't really have another pre-made single. The 3 songs that might get played on the radio with choruses and hooks had already been released, but sound engineer Arabella Rodriguez had the smart idea to remix the Karen Wheeler vocal showcase back to life. It was given a Keep On Moving makeover, with additional lyrics that incorporated the title phrase. For the track, they created perhaps the best version of their signature beat, utilizing a Graham Central Station fill to make it really pop.
Hey, call me when you want.
Complete with danceable bass and the reggae philharmonic back on strings, it started to take shape. The lyrics themselves had been written by Wheeler, inspired by a near-death experience.
Back to life, back to reality.
Well, back to life for me was because I died and came back again. That's how I back to life. Because I literally died on the labour table and my son was about to die. He's got cerebral palsy. And at 21 years old, I couldn't handle it. And it was hard. I just put back to life in it because I just thought there's got to be more than just that's the end of your life. And I wrote it because I needed to write it for myself and other people. It wasn't just for me. It was like, if anyone feels that under, you have to find a way to get out. And music's my way to get out.
It was a conversation with her creator. Where she pleaded to know why she had been sent back. Her current reality not being too stellar in the face of eternal paradise. The spiritual aspect not only alluded to her gospel influences, but gave the song a positive, uplifting message. Though Keep On Moving had been a sizable hit, the UK music press didn't know what to do with them. Soul II Soul were neither soul, reggae, dance or hip-hop, but an ingenious mix. Publications like The NME and Melody Maker didn't know whether to compare them to US hip-hop like De La Soul and Public Enemy, or UK Acid House. There was also a lingering sense that the music press was a bit too set in their ways, that Soul II Soul were not their usual white guitar pop band. I remember when we had our press day, there were no photographers. The A&R lady, Jane, she ended up leaving the industry to go and make jam. Couldn't get them to take photos of Soul II Soul. We later found out from one of the interns, who's still in the business, they thought we were too intimidating, and if they put our pictures on the cover as smash hits, they wouldn't sell. Melody Maker thought we sucked. The revised version of Back to Life, However Do You Want Me, was released at the end of May 1989, As it entered the chart at number 12, Soul II Soul were invited onto the BBC's Top of the Pops. The collective had already appeared on the show to promote Keep On Moving, but Wheeler didn't want to mime, especially as, unlike a lot of the house music they were being compared to, Wheeler was able to sing live. However, despite having had notable exceptions to the lip-syncing rule in the past, Soul II Soul were denied, so Soul II Soul snubbed Top of the Pops. Despite this, Back to Life hit number 1 and remained there for 4 weeks. By its third week at the top spot, Club Classics Volume 1 had also topped the UK album chart. One of the beauties of what happened with Soul II Soul was that for the first time in my life, I was able to see a number 1 from this country that was a product of my environment. There was a black sister there with locks. She was that totally stereotyped image of somebody that wouldn't have a fucking chance in the world. That to me was the real achievement. We got dissed by Top of the Pops in the BBC, and it still stayed at number 1 for a month. It gave me so much encouragement. For our culture here in Britain, it's such a big move.
Have to stay alive, living in the light.
The impact Soul II Soul had on British music was pretty much instant. Their signature beat, that unhurried, half-human, half-machine drum loop, was adopted by many remixers and dance producers. Within 18 months, there were over 20 tracks on club rotation, with the Soul II Soul sound.
Spin 'em around like a wheel on fire, walking on tightrope and love's highway.
The band had also broken through in the US in a way that few other black British groups had before. The States version of their debut, renamed Keep On Moving, quickly went twice platinum. Some journalists presumed they were the start of a third British invasion, while others saw Soul II Soul's international success as a redemption for the early 80s Brit-funk bands that never quite broke through beyond the UK. I'm not being funny, but in America, before Soul II Soul came along, 99 out of 100 English black music tunes were just laughed at. The only other people that made a real impact were Loose Ends. And they were important for us, establishing an identity as a footing that we could go in on. There are still people in America that can't believe there are black people in England, but they're finding out. Soul II Soul won 2 Grammys in 1990. For Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal for Back to Life, However Do You Want Me, and Best R&B Instrumental Performance for African Dance. The NAACP gave their 1990 Positive Image Award to Jazzy B, the first Briton to be awarded the honour in its 2-centuries-long history. Yet while they had been fully embraced by the US, back home they were somewhat ignored critically, alongside the barely disguised hostility of the press. At the Brit Awards they got 4 nominations and won nothing. Considering how much Soul II Soul was doing to champion British music all around the world, they felt cheated when they lost Best British Newcomer to Lisa Stansfield. Similarly incensed, Neneh Cherry destroyed the award she won for Best International Solo Artist, then gave the head to Jazzy B. I was hurt that nobody recognised the work we'd done over the last couple of years. For all the reasons they didn't give an award, I thought those reasons were over. I thought they would have made a statement and given it to the founders of the style, rather than the imitators. While Soul II Soul continued to make music, they never had another year like 1989. Their follow-up, Volume 2, 1990 A New Decade, released in May 1990, entered the UK chart at number 1, and gave the group another couple of top 10 singles. But the advantages of being a loose collective were also its flaws. None of its vocalists returned for album 2, losing a big part of what people loved about their debut. In particular, Karen Wheeler left to pursue a solo career amidst a cloud of intrigue, releasing first album UK Black on EMI the week before Volume 2. To be honest, I wonder sometimes whether I did the right thing moving on from Soul II Soul. Not that I had much choice. Something inside me compelled me to leave. It'd come to the point in my musical life where I couldn't stand being told what to do anymore. It's like trying to make yourself really small to fit in a space. Eventually it gives you boils and bunions, distorts your spine or whatever. You just feel like you have to stretch out and breathe. Building on Sade's work earlier in the decade, Soul II Soul showed that a black British R&B act can succeed on a commercial international level without having to hide their intrinsic Britishness. Into the 90s, British R&B increased in visibility, with artists like the Brand New Heavies, Seal, Gabrielle, Des'ree, Dina Carroll, and Tasmin Archer all having their moment. Alongside this, Soul II Soul's combination of hip-hop beats and soul vocals continued to be refined. Soul II Soul's success as a DIY black-owned business was also pivotal. By 1990, Jazzy B felt he was selling himself short by referring to Soul II Soul as simply a collective. They were a brand, with a club, 2 record and clothing stores, complete with their own fashion lines beyond simply t-shirts, not to mention their own record label. It was a forerunner to the late 90s hip-hop empires, like Jay-Z's billion-dollar Roc Nation enterprise. Most of the black British music from then on, from jungle and drum and bass to UK garage and grime, saw Soul II Soul as an example that they didn't need to get major labels involved to build an audience. That through a mixture of self-funded bootlegs, pirate radio and community, they could maintain self-sufficiency. Plus we got to hear some unashamedly British black voices on the radio.
Witness the fitness, the prophets and live at one hope, one quest.
I wake up every day is a daydream. Everything in my life ain't what it seems. I wake up just to go back to sleep.
I used to listen to You Don't Wanna Bring Arms Out. I've got so many clothes I keep some in my aunt's house.
We often look to America for our influences, but this was a moment that put British music back on the map. It also came out at a special time in the industry's history, just before digital took over and everything seemed to fall apart. Eventually, Britain caught up to the importance of Soul II Soul. It seems fitting that the boy who made his start DJing a block party for the Queen's Jubilee ended up being presented with an OBE in 2008. Karen Wheeler was similarly honoured in 2023. And while Soul II Soul was so much more than just the music they made, those tracks are a huge part of their legacy. As Jazzy B often repeated, a happy face, a thumping bass for a loving race. They made the exclusive inclusive. They invite you in no matter your background. Their anthem, Back to Life, sounds just as at home, played in a field, at a club, or on pop radio. It's a song with a very specific meaning, and yet feels universal. It's many things to many people. It morphs to however you want it to be, and however you need it to be. Thanks for watching. Which artists do you think have taken the most influence from Soul II Soul? Comment down below. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and why don't you also do me a favour and share it with a couple of people. It really does help. As always, I like to shout out everyone who supports me over on Patreon. And I will see you in several weeks' time for whatever won the last Patreon poll.